Episode 3. The Weight of Secrets. Dex stared at Dr. Voss, the weight of her unspoken request settling over him like the station's artificial gravity suddenly doubling. Around them, the maintenance bay hummed with activity. Techs prepping ships, officers barking orders, the metallic clang of tools against hull plating. But in their small pocket of space beside the supply locker, the noise felt distant, muffled by the enormity of what she was asking. "You want me to help you access classified military data," Dex said quietly. It wasn't a question. Dr. Voss's dark eyes held his without wavering. "I need someone who can get into the data core without triggering security protocols. Someone who knows the station's systems inside and out." She paused. "Someone who understands that sometimes doing the right thing means bending the rules." Bending? Dex let out a breath that was almost a laugh. "Doctor, what you're talking about is breaking. Shattering, actually." "I know what I'm asking." Her voice dropped even lower. "But if those energy signatures are what I think they are, if this isn't the Critharium or any known hostile, then sending our fleet into that situation blind could be a massacre. We lost 3,000 people at Korvathi because we didn't have all the information. I won't let that happen again." The passion in her voice caught Dex off guard. He'd watched her from afar for months, seen her navigate diplomatic crises with cool professionalism, always composed, always in control. This was different. This was personal. "Korvathi," he said. "You were there." Something flickered across her face, pain, quickly suppressed. "I was part of the first contact team. We missed critical data about their defense systems because our analysts only had access to sanitized reports. By the time we realized what we were actually facing..." She stopped, jaw tight. 3,000 people, Dex. 3,000. Dex thought of the rapid response fleet preparing to launch in less than 4 hours. Thought of the crews aboard those ships, the Marines who would deploy if this turned into a ground operation. Thought of Admiral Strand's words on the observation deck. "You notice things others miss. Don't lose that. The galaxy needs people who see clearly. If I do this," he said slowly, "and we get caught, we won't. But if we do, it's not just my career. It's prison. Maybe worse, depending on what we find." Dr. Voss nodded. "I know. I wouldn't ask if there was any other way. But I've been trying to get clearance through official channels since the alert went out, and I keep hitting walls. The intelligence division is stonewalling me. Command won't return my requests, and the clock is ticking." She glanced toward the bay entrance where Garrett Cole was coordinating with a team of engineers. "I can't do this without you." Dex rubbed his face, feeling the stubble from a day that had started 16 hours ago and showed no signs of ending. Every instinct screamed at him to walk away, to go back to being invisible, to let the people in charge handle it. That had been his strategy for 6 years. Keep your head down, do your job, don't make waves. But something had shifted. Maybe it started on the observation deck with the Admiral. Maybe it started when he'd looked at Earth from 42,000 kilometers up and felt the weight of all those people down there, living their lives, trusting that people like Strand would keep them safe. Maybe it started even earlier, the first time he'd realized his life had become a holding pattern, waiting for something he couldn't name. "The data core is in Section 12 Alpha," he said. "Military zone. I'd need a reason to be there." "There was a minor power fluctuation in that section 40 minutes ago," Dr. Voss said. "Nothing serious, but it generated an automated maintenance request. I made sure it got routed to your supervisor." Dex looked at her sharply. "You planned this, before you even approached me." "I planned for the possibility. I've been watching you, Dex. You're good at your job, better than you should be for someone who's been invisible for 6 years. And you care. I saw it in your face when you asked about the attack patterns." She pulled out her datapad, fingers moving quickly across the screen. "I can give you a quantum relay. Plant it in the data core, and I'll have access to the raw telemetry within minutes. The relay is untraceable. It'll piggyback on normal data traffic and self-destruct after 12 hours. Where did you get military-grade espionage equipment?" A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "Diplomatic Corps has its resources. We're not all cocktail parties and translation matrices." Dex thought about that. Thought about the fact that she'd come prepared, that she'd already maneuvered to get him assigned to the right section, that she'd chosen him specifically. Why me? There are other maintenance techs who could do this. People with more experience, better access. Because you're invisible, she said simply. No one pays attention to the night shift janitor. And because when I asked around about who really knew the station's systems, not just the official specs, but how they actually work, your name came up. Cole said you could find your way through the station's guts, blindfolded. Cole knows about this? God, no. I asked him hypothetically, weeks ago, before any of this started. She held out the datapad. On the screen was a schematic of Section 12 Alpha, with the data core highlighted in blue and multiple access routes marked in green. I've been preparing for something like this since Korvathi, hoping I'd never need it, but preparing anyway. Dex took the datapad, studying the routes. 2 were main corridors that would have security checkpoints. 3 were maintenance conduits that would get him close, but required bypassing electronic locks. 1 was a ventilation shaft that looked impossibly narrow. You'd have maybe 20 minutes before someone notices the data access, Dr. Voss continued. The relay will mask the extraction as routine diagnostic traffic, but it's not perfect. If someone's actively monitoring the core, they might spot the anomaly. And if they do, then you're a maintenance tech who went to fix a power fluctuation and accidentally triggered a diagnostic subroutine. Play dumb. You're good at being underestimated. Dex looked up from the datapad. You've really thought this through. I've had a year to think about it. A year of nightmares about Korvathi. A year of watching intelligence reports get sanitized and critical data get buried in classification protocols. Her voice hardened. The system is broken, Dex. It's designed to protect itself, not the people it's supposed to serve. Sometimes the only way to do the right thing is to work around it. It was a dangerous philosophy, the kind that could justify almost anything if you believed strongly enough in your cause. But looking at her face, seeing the haunted determination in her eyes, Dex understood. She wasn't trying to undermine the system for personal gain. She was trying to save lives, and maybe that was what the Admiral had been talking about. Maybe this was what it meant to see clearly, to notice things others missed, to recognize when following the rules would lead to disaster. Okay, he said, I'll do it. Relief flooded her features, quickly replaced by professional focus. Thank you. I know what this costs you. Let's hope it's worth it. Dex handed back the datapad. I'll need the relay. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a small device, no bigger than his thumbnail. It looked like a standard data coupling node, the kind that connected diagnostic equipment to ship systems. Unless you knew what to look for, you'd never notice it was anything unusual. Press the activation stud once you've attached it to any port in the data core, she said. It'll initialize automatically and start the extraction, then get out. Don't wait around to see if it works. Dex pocketed the relay, feeling its slight weight like a lead brick. How will I know if you got the data? I'll send you a message, something innocuous that won't trigger monitoring algorithms. She thought for a moment. I'll thank you for fixing the environmental controls in my office. That'll be the all-clear signal. And if something goes wrong, then we never had this conversation and you were just doing your job. She met his eyes. I won't let you take the fall for this, Dex. If it goes bad, I'll claim I manipulated you, that you didn't know what the relay was for. You'll have plausible deniability. That's a nice thought, but we both know how this works. If they want a scapegoat, they'll take the easiest target. Dex glanced toward the bay entrance. I should go before Cole starts wondering where I am. Dex. Doctor. Voss touched his arm, and he felt the warmth of her hand through his uniform sleeve. I mean it, thank you. This matters. He nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Then he turned and headed toward the bay entrance, weaving between ships and equipment, just another maintenance tech going about his duties. Invisible. But as he walked, he felt the quantum relay in his pocket, and he knew that invisibility was about to end. One way or another, after tonight, nothing would be the same. Section 12 Alpha was deep in the station's military zone, past 3 security checkpoints and 2 biometric scanners. Dex approached the first checkpoint carrying his toolkit and wearing his most bored expression, the one that said he'd rather be anywhere else but was too tired to care. The guard, a young corporal with fresh insignia, barely glanced at him. Maintenance? Power fluctuation in 12 Alpha. Probably nothing, but they want it checked before the fleet launches. Dex held up his work order on his datapad, letting the guard scan it. The corporal waved him through. Make it quick. We're on elevated alert. Always am, Dex muttered and shuffled past. The second checkpoint was unmanned, just a biometric scanner that read his ID chip and opened the security door. The third required a retinal scan and a supervisor override, which Dex had thanks to Cole's blanket authorization during the emergency mobilization. The door hissed open and he stepped into the corridor leading to the data core. The lighting here was dimmer, more utilitarian. Military efficiency without the pretense of comfort. Dex passed two officers heading the opposite direction, both too focused on their datapads to notice him. He turned left at an intersection, then right, following the route he'd memorized from Dr. Voss's schematic. The data core occupied a secure room at the end of a dead-end corridor. Another biometric scanner, another work order verification. The door opened with a pneumatic hiss, revealing a chamber filled with server banks and processing nodes, their status lights blinking in rhythmic patterns. The air was cool, kept at optimal temperature by dedicated environmental controls. The hum of processing power filled the space like a mechanical heartbeat. Dex stood at the threshold, taking it in. This was the brain of the station's military operations. Communications, tactical data, sensor telemetry, everything that kept Starbase 447 functioning as a command center. And he was about to plant a spy device in its core. His heart hammered against his ribs. His hands felt slick with sweat despite the cool air. This was insane. This was career suicide. This was necessary. He thought of Dr. Voss's face when she'd mentioned Korvathi. 3,000 people. He thought of the rapid response fleet, crews preparing to jump into an unknown situation. He thought of Admiral Strand asking him if he was content or merely waiting. Dex stepped inside. The data core's interface was standard military architecture, designed for redundancy and security rather than user-friendliness. Dex moved to the central processing node, the one that handled incoming telemetry data. His fingers found the access panel, and he popped it open with practiced ease. Inside, fiber optic cables and data couplings created a web of connections. He identified the telemetry input stream, traced it to its processing node, and found an unused coupling port. The quantum relay slid into place with a soft click. Dex pressed the activation stud. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the relay pulsed once with a soft blue light that quickly faded, making it indistinguishable from the dozens of other connection nodes in the panel. Done. He closed the access panel, making sure it was properly sealed. Then he pulled out his multi-scanner and made a show of checking the power conduits, in case anyone reviewed the security footage. Just a maintenance tech doing his job, finding nothing wrong, moving on. He was halfway to the door when it opened. Admiral Strand stepped into the data core. Dex froze. Every muscle in his body locked up. His mind went blank, then flooded with panic. The Admiral was here. The Admiral had caught him. The Admiral, Mr. Holloway, Strand said calmly. I thought I might find you here. Dex's mouth worked, but no sound came out. His multi-scanner suddenly felt like evidence in his hand. His toolkit might as well have been marked espionage equipment. Strand moved into the room, the door hissing shut behind him. He walked past Dex to the central processing node, his hands clasped behind his back, his expression unreadable. The power fluctuation. Did you find the cause? It took Dex 3 tries to make his voice work. No, sir. Everything checks out. Probably just a transient spike. Probably. Strand studied the server banks, his pale blue eyes moving across the blinking status lights. Strange coincidence, having a maintenance issue here just before the fleet launches. Yes, sir. Strange. Strand turned to look at him. In the dim light of the data core, the Admiral's face was all sharp angles and shadows. You know, Mr. Holloway, in my 40 years of service, I've learned that coincidences are rarely coincidental, especially on a military installation. Dex felt the quantum relay burning like a brand through the access panel, through the walls, through his skin. Sir, I've also learned, Strand continued, that sometimes the most important intelligence comes from unconventional sources. That rigid adherence to protocol can blind us to critical information. He paused. Do you understand what I'm saying? Dex stared at him. Was the Admiral telling him what he thought he was telling him? Or was this an interrogation technique, trying to get him to confess? I'm not sure, sir. Strand smiled faintly. I think you are. I think you're a very clever young man who sees things others miss. I said that to you this morning, didn't I? On the observation deck. Yes, sir. And I meant it. Strand moved closer. I also told you that sometimes we have to make hard choices. That leadership means accepting the weight of those choices, even when they keep you awake at night. I remember, sir. Good. Strand's voice dropped. Because I'm about to make a hard choice right now. I'm choosing to trust that if someone were to access classified data from this core, hypothetically speaking, they would do so for the right reasons. To protect lives. To ensure that our people have the information they need to survive. Dex's pulse thundered in his ears. Hypothetically. Hypothetically. Strand held his gaze. And I'm choosing to believe that such a person would be careful. That they would ensure the data reached the right people. People who could analyze it properly and make informed recommendations. People like Dr. Vos, for instance, who has considerable expertise in threat assessment but lacks the clearance to access raw intelligence. The Admiral knew. He knew everything, and he was giving his tacit approval. Sir, Dex said carefully, if someone were to do something like that, hypothetically, they would want to make sure they weren't compromising station security, that they weren't putting people at risk. A valid concern, Strand nodded. Which is why such a person would want to limit the scope of the data access. Specific telemetry from Zeta-Seven only. Nothing broader. Nothing that could be exploited by hostile intelligence. That would be wise, sir. It would. Strand moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing, Mr. Holloway. If this hypothetical situation were to occur, and if the data revealed something critical, something that could change our tactical response, I would expect to be informed. Quietly, through appropriate channels. Dr. Voss has your ear, sir? Dr. Voss has my respect. There's a difference, but in this case it amounts to the same thing. She speaks, I listen. Strand's expression hardened. But I need her to speak quickly. The fleet launches in 3 hours and 40 minutes. After that, whatever we learn will be too late to change our deployment. I understand, sir. I hope you do. Strand activated the door. Finish your inspection, Mr. Holloway. Make sure everything is functioning properly. We can't afford any system failures tonight. No, sir, we can't. Strand left, and Dex stood alone in the data core, his legs shaking so badly he had to lean against the server bank for support. The Admiral knew. The Admiral approved. The Admiral was counting on them. The weight of that trust was almost more terrifying than the fear of getting caught. Dex forced himself to move, to finish his fake inspection, to exit the data core and make his way back through the security checkpoints. The guards waved him through without question. Just another maintenance tech, finishing another routine job. But as he walked back toward the maintenance bay, Dex's datapad chimed with an incoming message. He pulled it out, expecting Cole with another assignment. Instead, the message was from Dr. Alara Voss. Thank you for fixing the environmental controls in my office. Much appreciated. The all-clear signal. She had the data. Dex looked at the message for a long moment, then deleted it and kept walking. Somewhere in her office, Dr. Voss was analyzing the telemetry from Zeta-Seven, looking for answers that could save lives or doom them all. And somewhere in his quarters, Admiral Strand was probably staring at Earth from his viewport, making hard choices and accepting their weight. Dex thought about invisibility, about how he'd spent 6 years being overlooked, unremarkable, safe. About how that invisibility had just allowed him to commit an act that could be called heroism or treason, depending on how the next few hours unfolded. His datapad chimed again. This time it was Cole. Where the hell are you? I need you in Bay 7. Now. Dex broke into a jog, back to his regular life, back to being the night shift janitor. But nothing felt regular anymore, and he suspected it never would again.